on a Sunday you have come here. I thank you especially for that. I'm still in I will be speaking to you, of course, about the Rama Setu matter, but I'd like to place it in perspective. And that's why I will first make some introductory remarks to see the Rama Setu matter in perspective. I myself began being concerned about the problems of the Hindu society that Hindu society is facing really after the arrest of the Shankaracharya of Kanchi. And when I found that he had been sent to jail like a common criminal on a case which was totally manufactured. I mean, of course somebody was murdered, there was no doubt, but the foisting of that case on the Shankaracharya meant that there were certain forces working which wanted to undermine Hindu society, and by putting him in jail and treating him this way, they could create an atmosphere amongst Hindus to feel inferior, feel important, and that would lay the foundation for undermining the Hindu society in future. And when we look at other problems also, you find that the same way the Hindu society seems to be the target. If you look at terrorism today, you find that invariably the target is the Hindu. If the temples bombs are thrown in the temples, they're not thrown in churches and masjids. It's not true to say that the terrorists have no religion, have no address, they are just violent people, because they have a method in their madness, and that method is to target the Hindu. When it comes to conversion, religious conversion, it's only the Hindu who is being converted. The target is again the Hindu community. Look at the history books, the distortions that are taking place, whether it's in this country or any other country. Again you find it's the Hindu history which is distorted and written in a way which debases the Hindu society. So if you go all along in all these major problems that are facing the country, you find that the Hindus are essentially on what I call as the siege. They are being attacked from all sides, and it's clear that there is a major effort being made. Which are the forces which are at work and all, I'll come to a little later, but I think that's what I need to point out. Now many people say, how can Hindus be under siege? They are 83% of the population. And how can such a big majority be under siege? Well, numbers are not by themselves enough. If you have 1,000 goats standing in a forest, and one tiger comes, all the goats will run away just in front of one tiger. Nor is it the capacity, the strength. That again is not enough. I give the example of a circus. There will be one thin ringmaster, and there will be 5 fierce lions, and they will be in the ring, and he will be the ringmaster will be totally within the ring. He cannot escape anywhere. And he will have only a whip, and he will crack the whip and make the lion climb up a chair or climb up a bench and so on. The lion will make noises, but ultimately it will obey him. Each of those lions was strong enough with his paw to give one hit to the ringmaster, and he would die. But they don't, they all obey. So it's not, to say I'm strong as a lion, well, it depends on your mind. So ultimately it's the mindset that is important, and it's the Hindu mindset which I would like to focus on. And today the attack on Hindus is no more physical like Muhammad Ghoris or Ghazni or Robert Clive and so on. It's much more the mental subversion that is taking place, and that is what we have to be beware of. If you ask me why I've taken up this issue with such strength, because I think Ram Setu was another example of where the Hindu society was being targeted in a really subtle psychological way, and that is why I decided that it should be taken up. Now, when I say mindset, what I mean is that all of us think that we are very good Hindus because we go to temples, we do puja, we celebrate Diwali, and so we think that is what it means being a good Hindu. No, that's not enough. You, Hindu, must have a corporate psychology, a corporate mind. If 500,000 Hindus are driven out from Kashmir, your own country, and they are living in a refugee camp. It's called a refugee camp. Imagine Hindus being called, Indian citizens, Hindus being called refugees, and they are living in refugee camps in Delhi and in Jammu. And they've been living since 1989, and there's just no one seems to care. And that is the psychology I'm talking about. The whole of India should feel annoyed, upset, in a state of rebellion. Then how can 500,000 people, Hindus, be driven out just because they are Hindus? And people worry about masjid being broken in one place, but every day temples are being broken in Kashmir, and there are other places too. And for example, if you take Malaysia, look what's happening to the Hindus there, what is happening in Guyana, what's happening in Kazakhstan. The Hindus are being systematically targeted, not only here but all over, because Hindus they can't do it for other religions, because the other religions have countries of their own. Hindus unfortunately don't have a country of their own. There was only one called Nepal, and that's also gone now. So essentially the Hindu corporate psychology is what I would like to emphasize and speak to you about. The forces waged against Hindus, they are very well organized, and one has to respect that in the sense that they are organized and they do their work very systematically. To convert 100 million Hindus as the religious leader Pat Robertson said in a meeting in Dallas about 2 years ago. He said that we must make it a target of 1 billion people in the world to become Christians, because Christianity is declining in Europe. Its quality of adherence in Latin America is poor. So we must get people from Asia, and 1 billion people should come from Asia. And in that, he said, 100 million should come from India, and cost should not be any criteria. And that's why today any group can just go to the internet and type and say, I want to build a church, and immediately a check will arrive. And in Andhra this is happening in a very big way, because the chief minister there, he may have his last name Reddy, but his middle name is Samuel. And he himself, when I met him, he told me that people think that because I'm a Christian, I'm anti-Hindu. So he understands that people are now becoming aware of this matter. So I would say that the Christian missionary mission is very clear, that we must convert 100 million Hindus to Christianity, and that means you cannot do it unless you first make the Hindu feel inferior, develop an inferiority complex. Then only this conversion can take place. As far as Islam is concerned, they are even clearer than Christians, because they have, it's no use quoting the Quran to me, because for everything said in one page in Quran, there is a contradiction in another page. So the Quran is not the real guide of the Islamic theology. The real guide of the Islamic theology is in Sirah and Hadith. Sirah is about the life of Muhammad, and Hadith is about his sayings. Those are the things which you have to read and find out what is in their mind. The question is, in Kashmir the Muslims are in majority, and they have driven out the Hindus. It's a country of 83% Hindus, but how is this happening? Because there, in that pocket of Kashmir, we have Muslims in majority, and they are able to drive away the Hindus and create a pure Hindu-Muslim state. And that's happening in the district level. If you go to Mir, you find the same kind of atmosphere. Go to Mau is a Muslim majority district, and as a consequence, they cannot celebrate Ramayana, they cannot celebrate Diwali. That's the kind of thing. There was recently, about a year ago, there was a riot there because the MLA and the MP of the area elected on majority vote. They say, no, you cannot do it. You want to do it in your own house, but you cannot put microphone and do it. Now, this kind of mentality, you can see in other parts of the country. In Tamil Nadu, which is only 5% Muslim, there are 40 town panchayats where the Muslims are in majority. And you have to go visit that to know what is happening. I had my house near Vellore, a place called Mel Visharam, and people, Hindus came there. And they told me, we are from Mel Visharam town panchayat, and we haven't got any civic amenities for the last 20 years. So we have come to you for help. I said, what about your MLA? MLA, he's not interested in us. Then I said, what about your MP? He says, oh, he doesn't bother about us. So what about the collector? He says, collector just receives our petition, don't do anything about it. So I said, what is your problem? He said, our problem is that we are 25% of Mel Visharam. And when elections take place, the 75% Muslim, they vote 100% of their people in. And after that, the town panchayat, they tell us very clearly, you want a school, you want the roads, you want the garbage to be clean, then you must convert to Islam. Then we will do it for you. And they said that, we refuse to do that, but they ruined our agriculture because they are running an animal tannery and they diverted the water of the processed water from the tannery to our fields, and therefore our agriculture crop is also dead. I couldn't believe that this was happening in India. So I went to Mel Visharam, saw it with my own eyes. Then I asked them, where are all your petitions in the last 20 years? They gave me this big file. So I took that file and I went to the High Court and I filed a case. At first the Chief Justice was a little angry with me. He said, why are you bringing such communal issues? We didn't expect this of you. I said, I am not coming on communal issues. I am coming under Article 15 of the Constitution, which says you must protect the minority. Unless you say that everybody in India is a minority except the Hindu community, in that case I will not. I will leave the court right now. But this is a Hindu minority, and this is how they are being treated. And therefore, under the Constitution, Article 15, you have to protect them. And then he asked me to lead evidence. I led this whole thing, read out how they've been petitioning, and they don't have schools, they have garbage is not collected, the roads are in total disrepair, etc., etc. And that the town panchayat also has issued notice to the Hindu community, if you want anything and you give a petition, you must write to us in Urdu, then only we will. So the Tamil state, but they demanded that. And then I thought this may be an exceptional case. Then I found there are 40 town panchayats in Tamil Nadu, Tondi in Rameshwaram, and all over Tamil Nadu, and all 40 places the same story is there. I'm happy to report that the High Court then issued a notice to the governor saying act on this or divide up the town panchayat so that the Hindus can self-govern in that area. So this kind of mentality comes out of the ideology. The ideology is Islam views the world in two parts, Darul Islam or Darul Harab. If it's Darul Islam, that means the Muslims are in power. If they are in power, then of course anyone who is non-believer is a kafir or a dhimmi, and therefore he is only fit for menial work. And the Muslims will rule, and then they will have their own Shariat law, etc., etc. But if it is Darul Harab, then you see the Muslim minority which is not in power is empowered by the Sira and Hadith to say, do anything unethical, but try to come to power. And that includes terrorism. If somebody says that terrorism is not backed by Islamic ideology, they're wrong. It's part of the concept of Darul Haram. And the only exception they have made is that if the Muslim is in such a shape that he can be exterminated or destroyed, then you make an alliance with the majority and live according to the rules that the majority tells you. And that's what Muhammad did with the Jews before he went to Medina. And then of course he broke the agreement. So I would like to say that I am not complaining against Islam, I am not complaining Christianity. They have got a clear mind. They know what to do. It is the Hindu who is confused. He doesn't know what he needs, what it is and what he has to do. That confusion is what I am trying to remove by placing the whole conspiracy behind the destruction of Rama Setu. What is Rama Setu? First of all, know the geography of Rama Setu. If I can make you imagine the coast, southern coast of India, you have from Calcutta coming down to Visakhapatnam, etc., Madras, Tuticorin, Kanyakumari, Kochi, Trivandrum, Cochin, etc. That's the Indian peninsula. Now, somewhere along the Madurai, if you draw a straight line towards the ocean, you'll end up into the coastal line, but the coastal line is not a straight line. It comes up a little like that and turns in and then comes like that. That portion is called Mandapam. Those who are from Tamil Nadu know this Mandapam. Then there is a 2-kilometer ocean, and then there's an island. And this island is about 20 kilometers long, 25 kilometers long. That's called Rameshwaram Island, sometimes called Pamban Island, where the Rameshwaram temple is there. But you can go from the mainland to this island because there is a bridge which has been built, a railway bridge and a road bridge, so you just can go across. It's called the Pamban Bridge. And this island ends in a place called Dhanushkodi. And Dhanushkodi onwards the Rama Setu starts and goes for about 48 kilometers. It's about 2 kilometers wide. And it's a causeway, some partly under the sea, partly above the sea. And there's a low tide, you can see the whole thing. You can go there by boat and climb onto it. And the Rama Setu is there for all to see. There are enough photographs now, starting with NASA. Of course, the Indian Space Agency has also produced photographs. The Indian Space Agency photographs are covered in my book. And therefore, there's no doubt that there is something like a causeway. It's not a bridge in the proper sense of the word, it's a causeway, 48 kilometers. Then of course you have Talai Mannar of Sri Lanka, that's the Setu. Now, Dhanushkodi his importance has been described by Valmiki's Ramayana. It says that when Rama reached Dhanushkodi, then he saw this ocean. And he said, he commanded the ocean, part, so that we can go. And the ocean just ignored him. So Rama was upset, so he pulled out his Agniban, that is the fire arrow, and he decided that he will evaporate the ocean so that his people can walk across. At that time the Samudra Raja came up and he begged Rama, don't do this. There are so many living beings like the fishes and seafood, etc. and they will all die. Therefore, your objective is to go across. And if you look across, you will see that the seabed is not flat. It comes up as a ridge. And therefore, at that ridge, you put sand and then bring coral rocks from the coastal line and put it there. And then on top of that, you put more clay, that is sand mixed with water, and then you got a bridge. And you can cross across. That is exactly what happened. Hanuman and his army brought coral rocks from the coastal area, and they put first clay, and then they put the coral rocks, and then they covered it with the sand. And that exactly is the structure even today. If you go to see the Geological Survey of India has produced this, and now the Rama Setu with his Setu Samudram Corporation has also produced these documents. I have present finding them in the court. The same structure is there. It's a ridge, then sand, then coral rocks, and then there is sand on top. Now, what is the significance of the coral rocks being there? This is a report which has been was hidden from the public eye by the government, was prepared by Dr. Badri Narayanan, who was the director of the Geological Survey of India. He had gone with his team into water and investigated the Rama Setu, and he found it was a bridge. On it was sand, then there were rocks, and then there were... Now, I have given a map in my book of this from the Setu Samudram Corporation project, which describes the various layers that constitute the Rama Setu. So, this Rama Setu, being it is, Dr. Badri Narayan said that coral rocks will never grow on loose sand base. They have to have a solid ground on which they will grow, and therefore coral rocks are after all living beings which are being merged into a rock form, and you will find them only in the coastal part. You will never find them in the mid-sea, and that too on top of our loose sand or clay base. And therefore it is quite clear, Dr. Badri Narayan concluded, that these rocks were brought there and put there. And therefore it is clear that his having said this, the government of India should have investigated. How was it brought there? When was it brought there? And who put it there? The Englishman calls it Adam's Bridge. As if Adam's built it. So now Adam's never built it. Even the mythology of the Islamic people is that Adam was kicked out from the heaven. He came to India and he walked across to Sri Lanka. So if he walked across, there must have been a bridge already to walk across on. Therefore it cannot be Adam's Bridge. This Englishman's deliberate habit of renaming everything in his own way to deprive the Hindu of his legacy, named it Adam's Bridge. But now, thanks to this controversy, slowly Adam's Bridge name has been forgotten. So this, that this is man-made has been established by the Geological Survey of India's report, which I have filed in the Supreme Court. And as so far they have not been able to rebut it. Of course, the government has still not got a chance to reply to all my arguments. The order we got was ex parte, in a sense, and I'll come to that in a minute. But I want to say that, that there is a structure, and the structure is a massive structure, 2 kilometers wide, 48 kilometers long. It's an engineering marvel. Its structure, the way it looks, is exactly as described in the Ramayana of Valmiki. Valmiki says that there are 3 Shivalingas. And you can see 3 Shivalingas even today if you go by boat along the Rama Setu, or if you walk across. In fact, if there is no place where the water goes above your chest. In fact, the maximum it comes to is your hip. So next time you go to Rameshwaram, take a boat and go to Dhanushkodi, and then walk across on Rama Setu to the extent you can. So therefore, it exists on that. There is absolutely no doubt. And the question is, what is then the problem? The problem is that the Rama Setu and the Rameshwaram island together, they span the whole ocean from Indian coast to the Sri Lankan coast. And consequently, no ship can go unless they get a passageway through this. And so that is point number 1. Point number 2 is that north of the Rama Setu, the water is called Park Strait. South of the Rama Setu, the water is called Gulf of Mannar. And the two waters together are known by the common name of Setu Samudram. Now, Setu Samudram, the ocean floor is shallow. And in other words, if a ship comes, it will hit the bottom, and therefore you have to furrow a canal in the ocean bed. It's not like the Suez Canal where you cut through land. It's not like Panama Canal where you cut through land. It is cutting the ocean, digging or dredging through in the ocean bed a furrow, so deep enough so that ships can come. And they have decided to dig a 12-meter furrow in the ocean bed so that ships can go. So therefore, the Setu Samudram project involves two things. One, digging a furrow in the ocean bed, and two, to take it beyond this span of the Rameshwaram Island and Ramasetu. From 1860, this investigation was going on. Committees after committees were set up. A total of 15 committees were set up, and each of them gave a recommendation. After independence, 6 committees were set up. The first committee was set up in 1955, headed by Dr. Ramasamy Mudaliar. And then the last committee was set up in 1998 under the special group of Dr. Gopalan. So between this period 56 and 98, there were 6 committees. And all 6 committees and the previous 9 committees, they recommended various routes. And all of them, till this last one, which is not a committee recommendation but a government recommendation, the last one, the first 5 were all through Rameshwaram Island, or in the case of Dr. Ramasamy Mudaliar, through Mandapam, that is, that portion which juts out from the Indian coastline, to cut through that and take it that way. So, Dr. Ramasamy Mudaliar's committee actually very specifically said, under no circumstances Ramasetu should be touched. And he gave several reasons, which I'll go to if any of you are interested later on. But at the moment, the problem has arisen not in terms of furrowing. And why is it necessary to furrow? Because if you want a ship to go from Tuticorin to Chennai, you cannot go directly today, so you have to go around Sri Lanka and then end up in Chennai. And that means 30 hours extra. To cut down this cost and have ships to be able to go quickly, this project was always thought of being done. So this is the whole idea behind the Setu Samudram project. But my objection began with saying, why did you select this route? This route was selected ever since the DMK joined the central government. And they began insisting, no, it should go by this route. All the other previous 5 routes, we reject. We want this route. No committee recommendation, no commission recommendation, no expert body recommendation. It was a decision of the DMK and the government of which they were a member. And so they insisted that this route should be through by breaking the Ramasetu. And that's where the problem arose, because actually the credit belongs to the Vishnu Parishad and the RSS. They were the first ones. Rama Gopalan or Hindu Munani, in fact, collected 35 lakh signatures, all verifiable signatures, name, address, telephone number and signature, and gave it to the president, saying, no, this cannot be done. And the Vishnu Parishad held rallies around the country and so on. But they were not caring. And the court, in the court, many religious leaders and many others went and filed cases, and the court dismissed all of them, saying, nah, we won't look at it. So at one stage, the RSS chief, Mr. Sudarshan, called me up, and he said, and Swamy Dayananda Saraswati, and said, now it looks like Ramasetu is going to be broken. They have decided to do it on such and such day. So I checked up, and my people in government told me so. So I went to court and asked for a stay, and I got a stay. So people asked me, how did you do it when others couldn't do it? Because my argument was not based on religion. I based my argument on 3 specific rational or secular arguments. Number 1, I said the choice of route number 6 is arbitrary. It has no scientific basis. Why did they select route number 6 when the same objective could have been achieved by other means, by other routes? So arbitrariness is a matter on which the courts always intervene. Whenever a government makes an arbitrary decision, courts intervene in judicial review. Second thing I said, the government is unreasonable, because I had been writing letters to the government saying Rama Setu, because of this report of the Geological Survey of India, is worthy of being considered as an ancient monument. It's a civil engineering marvel. So make it, investigate and find out whether it is worthy of being declared as a national ancient monument. I didn't say that it should be a religious institution or anything like that, and I said ancient monument. The government was flatly refusing. They were writing a letter, no, we are not interested, we are not going to do it. So I said this is unreasonable, because the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Act says that if anyone brings information to the government that such a ancient monument exists, the government is duty bound to investigate. So I said that being unreasonable. And third I said, which irritated them no end, that this decision is afflicted by bias. And courts have always intervened when you have proved bias in decision making. I said bias is that Karunanidhi is got a phobia about Ramchandraji, and therefore he is deliberately selecting this route because he wants to humiliate the memory of Ramchandraji, and therefore Karunanidhi should not be, and his chelas like Balu should not be part of the decision making. The whole decision making should be redone minus them, and that is. So since I didn't speak about Ramayana and I didn't speak about anything else, the court gave me a stay. And that stay I got last August. After that, this whole process began of argumentation, etc. And final, after lots of adjournments, because the government did very stupid things like filing an affidavit saying, challenging me, saying the ground doesn't exist. And there was a big roar, and the BSP arranged chakka jam throughout the country. And so they got frightened and they withdrew their affidavit. And then they took 6 months to file a new affidavit. And finally in May, the hearings, 1st of May to 6th of May, the hearings were held. And in that, many of us participated, because there were many petitioners after me, many others came and affiliated themselves. Jayalalitha also said, I want to be also part of this. So she also filed a petition. Then Ramagopalan's petition was there, and some Kalyan Raman's petition there. So 5, 6. So we brought a top lawyer for each of them. But for me, I did not have keep a lawyer. I went myself. I'm an economist, I'm not a lawyer. But I had the blessings of the Acharyas, Swamy and Saraswati. I had the Shingeri Swami, who said you must do it. And I had the general approval also of Ashok Singhal, he said that I believe, of all politicians, I believe you the most, so you go ahead and do it. So therefore, first I made all Soni Sarabji, Parasaran, Venugopal, I said you go first. And they went and battered the court on the technicalities, on the constitutionalities, etc. And finally my turn came and I spoke for 8 hours. First whole day I spoke for 5 hours. The next day I spoke for another 3 hours. And at the end of that, the court had to, I spoke for so long that we came near the vacation time because the court had to rise to vacation. But what surprised me is that the court then issued direction to the government without hearing the government. That was what's interesting. Go back to the drawing board and find out why you cannot have an alternative route. Come back and report to us, because then we can challenge that report if they came and said, no, there's no alternative. I have in fact suggested one extra alternative. I said, if your objective is to go from Tuticorin to Chennai, to Kakinada, Visakhapatnam, Calcutta, by the shortest possible route, then what you do is you convert Tuticorin into a container port. And when the ships come, they will leave the goods, have railway lines start from the port and go all along the coast to Calcutta. So the goods will be then put in railway wagons and then taken, or have a freeway, expressway or a turnpike. These I've proved by economics, and it's there in my book, that are cheaper than this Setu Samudram project. In fact, the development spillovers would be much more. So they have to look at all that now. And I pulled out from the minutes of the Setu Samudram project meetings to show that the Planning Commission had suggested that you please look at this also. And they rejected it, saying, no, our mind is made up, we're not going to look at it. And so the court pounced on that also and said, have a look at this. That's one. Second, the government said you are duty bound to conduct an archaeological survey to find out whether Rama Setu is worthy of being named as an ancient monument. Do the investigation and come back. And the archaeological survey now has given a public statement that in order to meet international standards for this investigation, it will take us another 4 years. So for 4 years, meantime I hope there will be a good government, a nationalistic government, and Rama Setu is useful. I'd like to say one thing, that one of the questions that is posed to us is, to me particularly, why you are allowing religion to block development. This contradiction, that you are blocking religion development by raising religious issues. Now, this is a nonsensical question according to me, because it's got nothing to do with religion per se. There was an alternative way of doing things. They have decided not to do it. I am not saying that don't have the project at all. Have the project, but there are other ways to do it, and you do it that way. And this has been our practice, that we have adjusted religious demands whenever it is possible. For example, I had received a letter from a man called E. Sridharan, who is the head of the Delhi Metro. And he has made a tremendous name by producing world-class metro in Delhi. And I had learned that he had some difficulty in scheduling the route or route alignment of the Delhi Metro from All India Medical Institute to Gurgaon via Qutub Minar. So I wrote him a letter and told him that this is what I've heard, I would like a clear-cut explanation as to what really happened. So he wrote me a letter which I filed in the Supreme Court and read in the Supreme Court also. And in that letter he says that we had decided to extend the metro from All India Medical Institute to Gurgaon via Qutub Minar, and everything was set. It was a 2,500 crore project, just like Setu Samudram is also 2,500 crores. And after the work had begun, one Islamic NGO wrote a letter to the Prime Minister saying that this metro route will generate vibrations when it comes near Qutub Minar, and there are 3 graves there, Qabristans, and they will develop cracks, and this will hurt our sentiment. So the route of the metro must be changed. So he is written, Sridhar writes to me in his letter, the Prime Minister summoned me and asked me that why don't you change the route? And I said, we have done all the investigation. Not only this Qabristan, there are a number of residential colonies. None of them is objecting, and therefore, there is no question just because one NGO writes, you should not take it seriously. He said, no, we have to accommodate. What's your problem? He said, well, the only other route I can have is to go, instead of going overground, I will have to go underground, because there's no way I can find land to go on an overground route anywhere else. So I have to, and this will cost me 500 crores extra for the project, 2,500 crores to 3,000 crores. That means 20%, 150, or 20% rise in the budget. And then this whole problem of digging, etc., there will be a delay of another 1 year, and so it's not worth it. Prime Minister said 500 crores, no problem, take 500 crores. And he said, I'm authorizing it, and you will get the authorization letter tomorrow. 1 year delay? What is 1 year delay in accommodating some cracks in the Kabristan? So I told the court, for Kabristan you can change the route, but for Ramchandraji you cannot change the route. What is this going on? Now you see, therefore, the country, we have done this not only in this Kutup case, we have done it for Tipu Sultan's palace also. We have changed the route of the Bangalore metro for the same reason. So consequently, this kind of accommodation is something they should do. But the clinching argument of mine with the court were two. One was on the question of legality of the project, and two was on the economics of it. First was on the legality. There is a law in a section in our Indian Penal Code called Section 295. And Section 295 states that if anyone damages, slights or destructs any religious, any object held sacred by the people, thank you. If it damages or fractures or destroys any object held sacred by the people, by a section of the people, not even by the people, by a section of the people, then it is a crime, and there is a there's a sentence of 2 years in jail. So I pointed out that to the judge, to the three Supreme Court judges, that it's a criminal offense to touch Rama Setu. Because Rama Setu is held sacred by a very large section of people. I said, in fact, 1 billion Hindus. I produced letters of all the Shankaracharyas. All the Shankaracharyas had given me a letter saying Rama Setu is sacred and you will not allow it to be broken. I gave a letter from the Swamy Saraswati, who heads the apex body of all sadhus called Hindu Dharma Acharya Sabha, which has all Shankaracharyas as members, Pitadipatis and Mathadishis and Mahamandleshwaras and Akhadas. All of them are members of this. It's an unprecedented organization, and which he has put up, for which he must be congratulated, and he is the convener, and he gave a letter. I also showed what Rama Gopalan of the Hindu Muni had produced 35 lakh signatures. So I said the section is holding it sacred, is no doubt, and therefore I said anyone who breaks it, there will be a criminal case. So the Chief Justice asked me, you will file a case against us also. So I said, well, I can't file it against you just now because you have still not authorized them to break it. But if you authorize them, then definitely I will file a case against you. Many people thought, I have been so rude, and I'll be held for contempt. But the law was clear in my case. It's very clear. What is sacred is not to be decided by the court. It is to be decided by the people. All the court can do is to decide whether, yes, there are people or not whether it is worthy of being sacred. So therefore, I was right in saying that, and consequently, the judges, Justice Ravindran said, well, you see, it may be sacred, but who goes to the middle of the ocean to worship the Rama Setu? I said, well, first of all, let me say that I worship the sun. We all worship the sun, but I never go there. But more than that, Skanda Purana says, what are the pujas to be conducted for going to Rama Setu? and at Rama Setu, and what ought to be done for the Shivalingas there. There are all long descriptions are there, and how Lord Skandapurana records Shiva is saying that if you people do not stop worshipping the Rama Setu, then I have no place in Rameshwaram. All that I pointed out to. So therefore, it is clearly an object, a sacred object. And the Supreme Court has many judgments on this. In 1958, there was this E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. Have you heard of E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar? The Dravida Kazhagam leader who believed in rationalism and debunking religion, particularly Hindu religion. He never debunked Christianity or Islam. He only debunked Hindu religion. He one day went to a shop and bought a Ganesha. And then in the evening he held a public meeting. In front of everybody he broke it. And he said, "You idiot Hindus, I have broken the Vinayaka statue and nothing has happened to me. You and your gods are nothing." So somebody filed a case and went to the Supreme Court. And in the Supreme Court, the lawyers of Ramaswamy Naikar took the stand that this Vinayaka was on a shelf in a shop. And he paid money out of his pocket and bought it. It became his personal property. And therefore what he does with that personal property is his business. Who can object? This is not a Vinayaka from a temple that you can say that you cannot break it. So Supreme Court has held that an object, however trivial in value, however insignificant, if it is held sacred, even if it is not worshipped, if it is image produce a feeling of sacredness, then breaking it is breaking the law, section 295, and therefore you are guilty of criminal offense. This is the Supreme Court judgment. So, therefore, once the Rama Setu is held sacred, there is no project which can touch it. So this is already doomed. Because in fact tomorrow when I go back to Chennai, I'm leaving day by day after back to India. One of the things I'm going to do is to file a criminal case against T.R. Babu because on 23rd January he ordered the dredger to go and break the Rama Setu. Of course the Rama Setu didn't break, the dredger broke and fell into the ocean. And not only the dredger, he sent afterwards a crane to pick up the dredger so he could collect the insurance. And the crane broke and went into the ocean. So then he brought in a Russian engineer to find out what is happening. The Russian engineer climbed on Rama Setu, slipped and fell and broke both his legs and had to be sent back to Russia. Finally, the workers started getting nervous, some voodoo is going on or something, and they wanted to run away. So the Setu Samudram project decided to hold a puja, a havan. And they asked the MLA of that area, Ramanathapuram, to come and break the coconut. So the MLA of the area was a Congress MLA called Chur Balakrishnan. He came, he broke the coconut, and he went back and his car had an accident and he died. So now these are of course coincidences. And I told the judges also, these incidents, I said these are coincidences. And I'm not saying that if you tomorrow order this... One judge of the Supreme Court told me that one of the judge's wives told him that for God's sake don't order the breaking of Rama Setu. Our family will be cursed for 4 generations. So this is they have tried to break it. I am going to go and file a case now because I got the documentation that it was Balu who ordered the demolition and the dredger had gone. This is before I had gone to court. They're all heading that way. So in any case, this is the fact that this is illegal. To touch Rama Setu is illegal. So As far as today, I can tell you, there is nobody in India who can henceforth say, break the Rama Setu. If anyone says, the second illegality in the project is that any project which is more than 5 crores, which involves something to do with the coastal area, ocean, has to get the NOC of the state government of that area. And in this case it is Tamil Nadu. So in 2005 the state government was headed by Jayalalitha, and the central government asked for NOC. Jayalalitha then appointed a committee to go into the question whether NOC should be given. She appointed a former head of the National Institute of Ocean Technology, Mr. Ravindran, to examine. He came out with a fact report saying that this environmental report which the government is using is totally flawed, the data are bogus, and the following additional investigation must be done and a report must be given. Then only NOC to be given or not given is to be considered. So they flatly refused to give the NOC. But despite that, the government disregarded that and went and inaugurated that project. So in fact, the Prime Minister and Sonia Gandhi and Karnanidhi committed a crime under the law, because it's a violation of the environmental law. There's a punishment there also, and by going and inaugurating this project. So there's no NOC, and therefore the project is illegal. Third thing is that you require NOC also from the Maritime Board as well as the Coast Guard on the security angle. They never got that. They didn't even apply for it. And they went ahead and... So this is the third illegality. Fourth... Huh?
They rule the country.
Yeah, they rule the country. You allow them to rule the country also. So the fourth thing is that since the route is just on the border between India and Sri Lanka, that is the medial line in the ocean, therefore there is a UN law of the sea 1968 which says that where such projects are taken, there should be a joint determination of the environmental consequences by that project. India has never consulted Sri Lanka, and therefore the Sri Lankan government has been beyond writing letters to the government of India saying, please do a joint inspection with us. They have not done it. Sri Lanka has the power to go to the International Court of Justice in Hague and ask the International Court of Justice in Hague to appoint a third-party investigator of the environmental sustainability of the project. The Sri Lankan governments have not done it. The High Commissioner wrote me a letter which I read out in court saying that so far we have not done it, but when we lose hope, we shall certainly do it. So I told the court that even if you give clearance, the Sri Lankan government is going to go to the court and there will be an immediate stay from the International Court of Justice. So these the four illegalities are there. And what a disregard of the law by the government of India has taken place. And what for? So that Rama Setu can be broken. And this mentality, one has to understand why. They say it's a mythical thing, or it is a man-made thing. Well, you haven't done an investigation, how do you know? Tomorrow you do an investigation, you may find out that in fact it is not mythical, it is a reality. For example, for 150 years the Englishman was making fun of the Vedas, saying it is all bogus because Vedas full of prayers to Saraswati river. And there is no Saraswati river. In fact, Ganga references are very few in Veda. The Saraswati references are maximum. And it's a very Saraswati river. There is no Saraswati river. So maybe Veda is written somewhere else and it is not part of India and all that. And the Englishman did play havoc with this. But in 1982, when Professor Yashpal was the head of the space agency, they used the satellite and discovered that the Saraswati river does exist. And it is under the ground now. For a variety of geological reasons, it has gone underground. And so today, nobody will say that Saraswati river is a mythical river. It does exist, and it is underground. Similarly, Dwarka. Krishna's Dwarka, where is it? The Englishman used to say that the Mahabharata is a bogus thing. Where is this Dwarka where Krishna was supposed to have been the Raja and all that? And there is no sign of that kind of civilization. Harappa has all these ruins you can see. Where is the Dwarka? After all, Krishna was 3000 BC, and around the same time or a little after the Harappa Mohenjo-daro. And where is the remains of Dwarka? But Dr. S.R. Rao, the Director General of Archaeological Survey of India, with his team did 5 years of research underwater. In 1995 discovered that Dwarka does exist as a whole city, but all under the sea, because there was an earthquake in year 12 AD, and which brought the whole Dwarka under the ocean. And now the government of India has given 1,000 crores to the Archaeological Survey of India to lift all the remains of Dwarka and put it in a museum, and they are going to call it Krishna Nagar Dwarka and show it to the whole world. So Dwarka till yesterday Dwarka was mythical, and today science has proved to be real. How do we know that this Rama Setu, once you have an investigation, will not turn out to be man-made, and therefore it is man-made? Obviously it was made in the time of Ramayana. And therefore we have to look at it. Karunanidhi's insistence, and in my opinion Sonia Gandhi's insistence also, she is also very determined. The Prime Minister, who is a friend of mine for 40 years, you know that he is a very good man, very honest man, very educated man, but he was born without a spinal cord, so therefore he is not able to take a stand. But privately he tells me where the pressures are coming from, and both these people are insistent that the Dharma Setu must be broken. Now I personally feel that we have to go into this question as to why this kind of why we are doing this kind of thing. Now I would say, therefore, economically also, and I will try to conclude after that, economically this project is a complete waste of money, because you will be making only losses. What is the argument for profit? That ships will come to Tuticorin, presently have to go around, they will spend 30 hours, more ship fuel will be spent, so make all the cost that will be saved if they go this way. They will save 30 hours, then that means so much fuel less, and therefore so much cost less, and 50% of that we will apply as tariff, and we will recover the cost of the project. This is what they are saying. Now, after all, first of all, which ships will be going through this channel? Only ships with less than 30,000 deadweight tonnage weight. Because the 12 feet deep furrow is only sufficient for ships of the weight of 30,000 or less tonnage. So, what percentage of ships are less than 30,000 tonnage today? Only 5%. 95% of the ships are above 30,000. In fact, they are above 60,000. About 10 years ago, the number of ships in the world which had tonnage of 30,000 or less was 20%. It is now down to 5%, and I am told in another 10 years it will be 0%, because they are going for larger and larger ships. So 10 years hence you will not have any ships being able to go, except ships belonging to T.R. Balu's company, which are all less than 30,000, and boats belonging to LTT, which are also less than 30,000. This appears to be a project to help Mr. T.R. Balu to earn money, and perhaps the LTT to do its nefarious activities, because the DMK is a close ally of the LTT, and that's why it is being done. So that is one aspect. Second is, you say that the ships will save time by going through the channel. Take a ship coming from Mauritius, going to Calcutta. Will it use the Setu channel or go around Sri Lanka? Well, if it goes around Sri Lanka, then it will go at full speed, which is possible in open seas, and that is 12 knots, 14 knots per hour. Whereas if it comes to the Setu project, the project report itself says that it has to slow down to 4 knots or 5 knots. It cannot go with speed. Why? Because the channel is not built on with walls, like the Suez Canal has walls, because it is cutting through land, so you will have a wall. Panama Canal will have a wall. You know exactly where the channel is. But in the case of Setu Samudram, you cannot tell where the channel is, because it's underwater. So you need a pilot to take the ship. So the ship will come, stop, then pilot will have to come, hopefully he's not on strike on that day, and then he will tag it along and take it across. It is going so slow speed, it will be only 4, so the sailing will be very, very little. Therefore, ships coming from Mauritius, and this is there in my book, they will prefer to go around Sri Lanka to Calcutta rather than go through Setu Samudram project. So where is these numbers? They say 8,000 ships will use Setu Samudram project. In my opinion, not more than 500. And therefore, if you use 500 and calculate the tariff given on their numbers, the country will lose 300 crores per year from the very first year, and by the 5th year it will rise to 1,000 crores, minus it will be. And not only that, this is an underestimate, because this channel, you see, will have to be dredged every month, every week, some people say, because the ocean will bring mud and put it again in the channel, so you have to again go and take the mud out so that the thing is clear. And Balu's son has a dredging company, so he will get permanent employment in dredging. The dredging operations will go on taking place. So this is a pure loot that has taken place. This has no economic basis whatsoever. Leave aside the environment basis, leave aside the national security basis. Now I'm saying on the economics of it and the illegality of it, this project cannot be sustained. So what I would like to say therefore is that I am pretty sure that this project will not see the light of day. It's gone back to the drawing board. By the time it comes, there will be general elections, there will be total sea change that will take place. I don't think anybody is going to do it. In any case, even if they wanted to break it, now they can't break it, because it's an accepted principle that this will be a criminal violation. The courts will never be. In my opinion, why they gave me an ex parte order is they became convinced. The court became convinced that this is an illegal project, and therefore they didn't want to hurt the feelings of the government, and they said, go back to the drawing board and come back with new proposals. And therefore I am not anymore worried that the Rama Setu is going to be a problem. Karunanidhi's whole mentality has been always to rubbish Ram's name. He says, which Ram Setu, which engineering college he got a degree? So I said, I recently asked him, because he fell sick, so he was admitted to Ramchandra Medical Hospital. So I asked him, publicly, that when did Ramchandraji get an MD to treat you in Ramchandra Medical College? So this mentality is a pure hatred for Ram. Where it politically suits him, he is not worried about using it for his benefit. For example, there is bullfighting that goes on in my home district called Madurai, which is called Jallikattu. Every season, just before harvesting or just after harvesting, they allow bulls to run in the lanes of the crowded lanes of the city, and then, or rather in the suburban part of the city, and therefore when people chase it, they irritate the bulls, and the bulls sometimes gore people, kill people also. So the government of India's Animal Welfare Board, they came before the Supreme Court and said this is all cruelty to animals. Put a ban on this game called Jallikattu. So the Supreme Court gave a ban. Gave a stay. Said no. Karunanidhi's government, Tamil Nadu government, went back to the court and said, please review your own order, because this is a matter which involves the religion of the people, and if you ban it, people will think that gods have cursed them, and there will be public disorder, and the government must understand that where religion is involved, development is not so important. this is an application they have filed with 2 days before my case was to be heard. And I stood in court and said, what to? They are talking from both sides of their mouth. They cannot take one stand there and one stand here. Similarly, seeing that public has started coming in a big way now. Everybody knows Rama Setu, so people are going to Rameshwaram are now going to Dhanushkodi and going to Rama Setu and so on. So much so that in Sri Lanka things, Mama, we can also earn a lot of tourist revenue. They have announced 34 sites connected to Ramachandra and Ramayana. One side they have said, this is where Sita had her bath. This is where Raman was killed. This is where Hanuman dropped the mountain containing Sanjeevani. They have identified 34 spots, and I have given you those things in my book, you can see it. And they are also promoting tourism through this. And I also found, to my surprise, one day I was recently going by train to Dehradun, and they have on our trains, they have, pictures of various parts of India. And there was one which I found, which is there in my book also, and it's this, which I saw hung on the side of the train in the inside compartment of a train. And what does it show? It shows Ramachandraji and Lakshman standing together, and all these vanaras carrying boulders on their head and putting it. And the top it says, listen to the waves telling their stories at Rameshwaram. That's what the top says. And here it says, the waters here still carry the blessings of Lord Rama's lotus feet. What poetic language. Because this is where the monkey army crossed over to Lanka to rescue Sita. Visit Rameshwaram in Tamil Nadu, India, issued by Tamil Nadu Tourism Development Corporation. I read this out also in the court. I said, this is the Tamil Nadu government. They are playing from both sides of the street. And to earn a little money, they can do anything, I said. And therefore, the court also took notice of it and told the Tamil Nadu Council that since when have you started observing Rama's lotus feet? So, therefore, in my opinion, all this is part of a political game which they have played. I am not in any politics. I certainly would say even if this project was economically profitable, I still oppose it. Because Rama Setu cannot be touched. And the law it cannot be touched, and it's a question of sentiment. And this has been proved by a massive rally held by Vishwa Parishad on 30th December in Delhi, where 10 lakh people came. They all came on their own, highly disciplined. In fact, Sridharan of the Delhi Metro told me that it is the day when we earned 12 lakh rupees in our tariff from Delhi Metro, because all these people came, bought a ticket, and they went by train. I have never seen such dedication. So this is something they will demonstrate it. So the question now is, why is this happening? We have to understand this. Recently, Shri Ashok Singh told me that why don't you take interest in Ram Janmabhoomi also? I think maybe I'll have to go back to law school and take a law degree. But you see there also, there is a constitutional bench judgment which says, and this is headed by a Muslim, namely Justice Ahmadi, and this constitutional bench says that masjid is not an essential part of Islam. Masjid is a convenience for reading namaz. Namaz can be read anywhere. Therefore, government can acquire a masjid for public purposes. This is there in the judgment 1994, Ismail Faruqi versus the government of India. Now, when that is the position, why shouldn't the government of India acquire the masjid in Varanasi, in Vrindavan, and in Ayodhya, and say that for public purpose, Varanasi will now become, as it was before, a Kashi Vishwanath temple in the complete form. Same thing with Vrindavan. Half of it has been broken and a masjid has been built. It was all done deliberately. In the case of Ayodhya, the only problem is that the court has held that breaking of the Babri Masjid was illegal. It was unauthorized. What they did, they took the law from it. But that's a subsidiary issue. The issue of whether a Ram temple can come is something which is, there is no law to stop it. Why 83% of the Hindus in this country, of our country, should be so passive in this matter? After all, Mr. Ramchandraji's, our temples are not like masjids. Our temples, to build our temples, you have to fast for 41 days. Then according to Agama Shastras, you have to perform a large puja till into that stone image God's own spirit is infused. So it becomes a holy place. A temple and a masjid cannot be compared. And therefore, what is it that is wrong with us? That all these things has to happen. In our country, we have to defend Ramchandraji and say that we have to protect it. Will they require that for others? Can you expect in any Christian majority country that we have to go to court and prove that Christ was born of a virgin? They can never prove that anyway. You cannot prove it. But no one is going to prove it in a court of law that Christ was born of a virgin. And similarly, in Kashmir you have this Hazrat Bal. There is a bottle with hair of Muhammad, which is considered very sacred. And one day it went missing. So the Muslims rioted. And the rioting continued for 3 days. And the government didn't know what to do. They could not contain it. Fortunately, one lieutenant colonel came and said, I have found it. And he showed it. And it was put back and everything became quiet. But how do you know that lieutenant colonel didn't go to a hairdressing saloon and get some hair and put them up? You haven't done any DNA analysis. So there is a question of faith. And you are not going to interfere with that. But we find in our country, on every single issue of Hindus, you have to fight all the way just to establish a small thing. So, and with the majority, with the government elected by the Hindus. So time has come now for us to recognize this. It's not enough to be, as I said, you can have 1,000 goats standing in a forest, one tiger comes, all the 4,000 goats will run away. It's not enough to have numbers, it's not enough to be strong individually. It's not enough to just go to do puja and to celebrate Ramayana, Ramlila, or visit temples. You have to have a corporate Hindu psychology. And that corporate Hindu psychology you must exercise once. Fortunately, on 15th and 16th of July, Swamy Dayananda Saraswati has convened a meeting of eminent Hindu thinkers, to which I have also been invited. And I've been, in fact, this morning, Dayananda Saraswati phoned me up to tell me that I should draw up a Hindu agenda which should be adopted in the election. For one election, don't look at anything else. Let the Hindus together vote for a Hindu agenda. That party or that front which is propagating a Hindu agenda, and all the sadhus say this is the front you should vote for, this is a symbol you should vote for. If all the sadhus combine and say, sugar, and all Hindus will not combine. Out of 83%, if 40% combined, you got absolute majority. The remaining 43% can remain secular, we don't mind. So 40%, if they can consolidate, you can do it. And ultimately, we need to develop our identity. There's so much confusion. What is India? India, which country is it? Is it something that the British created in 1947? Or are we an ancient country? If we are an ancient country, how is the Muslim and Christian connected with it? So these are questions which you have to answer, and I have proposed that the identity of India is Hindustan, which means a land of Hindus and those others whose ancestors are Hindus, or those others who proudly acknowledge that their ancestors are Hindus. So if the Muslims and Christians say our ancestors are Hindus, you are part of Hindustan. If you say your ancestors are Gori and Ghazni, then you better go to Pakistan. You don't belong to our country. That is the identity of India. It's a continuing civilization. The continuing civilization is a Hindu civilization. Even if people have other religion, the culture is Hindu. That has to be imposed with the help of, with the willingness of the people, and we have to make people accept this. And consequently, there are certain things that we have to do. Why I have been propagating for a long time that Sanskrit should become the national language of India, and it is because Sanskrit vocabulary is there in every language. Even in Tamil, 40% of the words are Sanskrit. Karunanidhi's name is Sanskrit name. If I asked Karunanidhi, what will you say in Tamil for your election symbol? He said, Chinnam. I said, Chinnam? Where did this Chinnam come from? It came from Sanskrit word Chin. And I said, what is your Chinnam? He said, Udayan Suryan. I said, what Tamil is that? So, consequently, every Indian language has a Sanskrit vocabulary in large percentage. In Malayalam it is as much as 80%, Bengali maybe 90%. So consequently we should ultimately try to bring Sanskrit back. The way we do it is to use Hindi and go on Sanskritizing the vocabulary of Hindi till it becomes Sanskrit. And this is what Adi Shankaracharya did with Pali. When he came, Pali had taken over Sanskrit. And then he said, no, don't ask for removal of Pali. Make vocabulary of Pali more and more Sanskrit. And the Pali went on becoming Sanskritized. And ultimately Pali disappeared and Sanskrit came back. So Sanskrit, the true history of India is not Aryans and Dravidians, they're all bogus. Where DNA has now proved that we're all the same people. Caste is not got to do with birth, it is a discipline. The Brigu and Bhardwaja in their debate have established that caste is to be created on the basis of discipline. They said there are Rishi Brigu said there are four sources of power. One is knowledge, second is weapon, third is wealth, fourth is land. These four should not be in one hand, they should be in separate hands. Therefore, those who have knowledge will not have wealth, will not have weapons, but they will have social status, and they will have to live by begging, and people should be honored to give them what they ask for in begging. Similarly, the Raja, the man who has the weapons, will defend the country, but he will not make policy. Policy will be made by the Brahmin. People who make money can make money, but they will not have the say in the running of the country. And those who have land will produce for the whole country. They'll have the great gratitude of the country, but land by itself cannot decide. So this is the whole idea, but somewhere it got connected with birth. And if you adopt the discipline of that caste, you become of that caste. That's why Valmiki was from a hunter family, some say he was a Dalit, and he became a Maharishi. Vedavyasa's mother was a fisherwoman, and he wrote the Mahabharata, and he became a Maharishi. Then Vishwamitra, he was a Kshatriya, he was considered Rishi of Rishis. Kalidasa was a Vanavasi. He was, in fact, sitting on a tree and doing foolish things. He was taken by the Brahmins and made into a Maharishi, ultimately became a Kavi of Kavis, you see. So, the only prominent Brahmin I can think of today is Ravan. Ravan was a Brahmin, by the way. Ravan was a Brahmin, was a great Pandit, but he had got so much ahankar, so much of his arrogance, that the Lord has decided the time had come to destroy him. And that's how he was destroyed, he was killed by a Kshatriya. And the Brahmins of India do not worship Ravan or against Ram for killing a Brahmin. They worship a Kshatriya because he fought on the rights for the side of good. So consequently, this understanding of what we are, this is a civilization that must be nurtured, grown. There should be a renaissance in it, and that can only come if we collectively decide that yes, we want a Hindu focus to our polity, and the Hindu focus will come by collectivity. This is what I think Rama Setu should engineer in our thoughts. Thank you very much.